thank you all so much for coming tonight to hear me speak. I'm very excited. It's always an honor to get to share my family's history. And I do have notes on my phone, so if you see me looking down, I'm just looking at my notes. I'm not texting or anything. So again, thank you. It is such an honor to be here. And so I just want to share the history of Fletcher's Corny Dogs. I like to start off with a few fun facts about the company. It did start in 1942 by brothers Neil and Carl Fletcher. Neil was my grandfather, and he created and perfected what we know today as the Corny Dog. We love these facts. You know, Fletcher's in 24 days of the State Fair of Texas, we sell on average 500,000 Corny Dogs in 24 days. And I think one reason for this is it is tradition to have a Fletcher's Corny Dog, but also for us, we believe that quality is important, and we believe that we make a really great product that people just love to have. During that time, we do go through 1,500 gallons of mustard and 800 gallons of ketchup. So you can see mustard is the preferred choice on a Fletcher's Corny Dog. It's always a real heated debate. There's usually some fist fights whenever someone brings ketchup out, but people do put ketchup on their Corny Dogs. A fun fact is we didn't even offer ketchup until 1994. So from 42 to 94, if you wanted ketchup on a Corny Dog, you had to go to the burger guy across the way. And the burger guy got mad, quit sending your customers here, so eventually we caved and we ended up getting ketchup. We have had the honor to have our products in the hands of people such as Oprah Winfrey. She came to the State Fair of Texas, I believe in 2009, and did a fun tour of the State Fair of Texas, and she ate about 7 Corny Dogs. And we've got to feed the Jonas Brothers, if you know who they are, the athlete Emmett Smith. Mikhail Gorbachev came in the 90s, early 2000s, and he had a Corny Dog with mustard. Julia Child, athlete Dirk Nowitzki, actor Mario Lopez, and former Texas Governor Rick Perry. He came out to the fair every year, and because he was the governor, he would sneak behind the stand so he didn't have to wait in line and would get Corny Dogs. Also, if you just see me, sometimes I'll sneak you back there so you don't have to wait either. But so those are some fun facts. Another one is that if you laid those dogs end to end, they would stretch from Big Tex all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. And here is a fun visual. So we do sell a lot of Corny Dogs during the State Fair, but our beginning is really vaudeville. My grandfather and his family were 5th generation performers. They were actors, singers, dancers, song and dance men. They traveled all over the US, even in the UK in the early 1900s. And my grandfather, Neil Fletcher, was born in 1904. He was the youngest of 8 brothers and sisters. His father unfortunately passed when he was just 5 years old. And it was said at that time he was already playing in bars and saloons, singing and playing the ukulele to help make money for the family. He eventually went on to meet his wife, Minerva, or as we call her, Minnie. And she was also an actress and would do the performances with, her whole family was also a Lion family of performers. So they got married, and in the 20s, Minnie and Carl and Neil came to Dallas in the 20s. And so I love to think about that too, is that, you know, I can't imagine what life, I was born in 87, I can't imagine what it was like going from Kansas City, Missouri to Dallas in the 20s, and really just traveling and starting all over during the Great Depression and before the Second World War. And so I really have to admire their tenacity and innovation in what they were doing. My grandfather was, he became the producer of the Madcap Players, which was the name of their company. They performed all over DFW when they were here in the 30s, a lot on Haskell Street in Dallas. And it was said they performed for about 10 years in the 30s until they were eventually shut down by the fire marshal. They played in Fort Worth and El Paso. This photo on the left, you can see Neil Fletcher, and he's in one of his performances, and it was called Drunkard. I was told he was a natural act at this, which is also how he eventually became, how he got the idea of the Corny dog. Him and his brother, over a bottle of bourbon, came up with the idea, which I'll focus on more. But I just wanted to show you some photos, playbills, newspaper clippings. The one on the right is also another performance of The Drunkard, which was in 1937 and in 1938. They were actually performing at the State Fair of Texas, which is where they met the fair officials who offered them the opportunity for a booth if they could come up with something to sell. And this woman here in the third picture, that's my grandmother, Minnie. And I believe it's her father and uncle. And so again, just family business. So the Corny dog was created by, again, my grandfather and his brother. It was said that there was a dish that they liked by German immigrants over in Dallas on Oak Lawn. And it was more of a baked sit-down meal. It was in the shape of ears of corn. And it was a similar dish, but it was time-consuming and complicated. And so they, like I said, over a bottle of bourbon decided, how can we improve on this item that we like? How can we make it more a portable item? They came up with the idea of developing a batter much different than the one they had. It was more adhesive, so it would stick to the dog. It was then fried, and then my grandfather's brother Carl said it needed to have a stick like an ice cream, and that way it became a mobile food item. They introduced it in 1942 at the State Fair of Texas. That year they grossed about $8,000, which today would be the equivalent of $130,000. And so it was almost an overnight success, but at the beginning of the state fair, it said that people didn't know what they were, they didn't want it, so they had to cut them up in bite-sized pieces and basically give out free samples. And they said that once they had a bite, then they came back, and they kept coming back. So we've got a photo up here on the left, top left. It's one of the oldest photos that I have found of the Fletcher's operations. I don't know if you can see, but it does say Fletcher's Corny dog, and it says canine. Fletcher's did go through several name variations before they landed on Fletcher's original State Fair Corny dogs. One name that they tried out was Brown Bomber. That one didn't last. Also, canine rose a lot of questions, so they had to get rid of the canine. The middle photo, you also see canine as well. And I don't know if you can see, but this is my grandfather. That's my grandfather. And this one on the top right, he's there admiring the ladies. They're so beautifully dressed. You know, no one really goes to the state fair and dresses up anymore. It's such a shame. It looks so lovely. So this was kind of the first generation's try at Fletcher's Corny dogs. From 42 to kind of the early 80s, my grandfather was mostly the face of the business. He's the one on the bottom middle here as well, eating about 6 Corny dogs. And so he tried different things. He had a small stint where he did his Corny dogs in a movie theater in Dallas, just try and see if people wanted them while they were eating, while they were watching movies. They did it for a couple years. I think there was quality issues. He also was a manager of the Majestic in Dallas at one point. So even though he started Fletcher's Corny dogs, my grandfather continued acting and performing and doing voiceover really until his passing in the 80s. The bottom right photo is actually my dad's cousin, who was one of the little models. And this was an advertisement for the Corny dogs at the movie theater. Another thing that my grandfather tried in 1960, he opened up an all-night diner over off Samuel Boulevard in Dallas. It was open from 60 to 63, and it sold Corny dogs, beer, burgers, Not sure why they didn't continue. I'm not sure why it closed down. The only thing I can think of is in many articles my grandfather is often referencing, he didn't want to be a businessman. He just wanted to play golf and fish and act. He still loved acting. The top right photo is actually his little flyer from the Peggy Nelson agency that they would send out. The bottom right photo was when he was in the Bonnie and Clyde movie in 1967 with Faye Dunaway. He was the bank teller that she was robbing. That's one of his more famous movies that he was in, even though it was a small part. It was an exciting role for him. So he continued acting. One more popular movie, it was called Mars Needs Women. Has anyone seen this? So I don't know if he's like the lieutenant. I can't remember what his position was, but so he was in Mars Needs Women. It's a fun movie. I've watched it a couple of times. He was also in some other sci-fis like Creatures and Aliens, just real wacky 60s movies. And he continued to do voiceover, but he loved acting. And so during his time when he wasn't at the fair or opening up a diner or doing theaters, he was still acting. So Neil, my grandfather, did have 3 boys. He had Neil Jr., he had his son John and William. So I have my Uncle John, my Uncle Bill, and my dad Skip. And this is his nickname was Skip, but he's Neil Jr. And so I love to get to talk about my dad. So before my dad took over the family business and became kind of, the face, he was a man that had 9 lives. He was a farmer. He started off crop dusting in the 50s, ended up becoming a commercial pilot. He, when he was younger, he was on the Arthur Godfrey show. He also did some other TV performances. He loved singing. Singing is one of his big passions. Frank Sinatra was his idol. My mom says that my dad was a crooner. And he also managed some nightclubs in Dallas, but he was so artistic. He also wrote a column as a fishing and hunting guide for Lake Tawakoni. He loved fishing. He performed, flew commercial. He eventually turned his kind of nightclub singing into more gospel singing. He got saved when he was actually flying a plane by one of the pilots. And then he went on to go across the country and was singing at different churches. And that became a big part of his life. So while, his father's doing the corny dog thing, he's off doing this. My grandfather passed in 1988, and I think my dad was 53 when he took over the family business. And so with that came the second generation. Now, my Uncle John was not really involved, but my Uncle Bill and his wife and kids were more involved in the family business. You can see the top photo is my grandfather, and the 2 men on the left is my dad and uncle, and the 2 boys on the right are my dad's boys from one of his first marriages. I'm on the bottom here with the red overalls on, and I've got my brother Aaron and my cousin William, who is William's son. So the second generation, when they came in the 80s, they wanted to do more and be more innovative. And my mother and my dad got married late 70s, and they had the State Fair of Texas business, but they wanted to do more. And so they began to open up some brick and mortars. I don't know if I have that one. I included that. Okay. And then I'll go back. So they did open up about 50 or so brick and mortars between Texas, Oklahoma, and Arizona in the 80s and early 90s. I don't know if anybody remembers them. There was quite a few in DFW. There was one in Louisville, plenty in Dallas and Irving. And so I was a little too young to remember. I think by the time I came along, they were kind of winding down. But so that was an adventure the second generation had. And one thing is that I know, just like with the third generation, the second generation was a little nervous about, would people want corny dogs outside the state fair? And they were wildly popular until the story is that in the early 90s, with the economy and the oil crisis and just growing the company so fast, things had to be scaled way, way down. And just like my grandfather, my dad said he just wanted to play golf and fish. So now I'll go back. So when my grandfather did die in 1988, passing, the corny dog staff to my father, there was a Senate resolution naming him the inventor of the corny dog by unanimous vote. And so it's quite the honor to have a government recognition. And the middle picture was when they had the kiosk. We had some in Galleria Mall, North Park Mall, Valley View Mall. And so that was, I believe one of those pictures was from Galleria. And so the second generation did special events like the Byron Nelson, and they did some other local events and festivals and things like that. But really, my dad kind of was older when this all happened, and by the time he was in his, he was 52 when I came along, and I think he really just wanted to be a dad. And so we traveled a lot with my family. The fair was always number one. It was so important. I grew up at the fair. I've been every year. It definitely feels like home to me. But things definitely scaled down once my brother and I came along. I think that they just truly wanted to be parents and travel and spend time together. Had a wonderful childhood with amazing parents. And my father passed away in 2017. And so then that brought about the third generation. And so I love that each generation gets to try something new, gets to be a little bit adventurous. And so I'll introduce the third generation. We have, my mother, second generation, but she's still the boss. So we've got my mother, Gigi Fletcher. She's the first lady of Corny Dogs. She oversees the company's infrastructure. Fun fact, she has a next level green thumb. She loves gardening. So if y'all want to talk to her about anything other than corny dogs, she loves to talk about her flowers. And she loves her French bulldogs as much as her corny dogs. We've got my cousin William, which again is my uncle's son. He oversees the concession trailers and kind of the maintenance, make sure that everything's working and up to shape and up to code. He's an advanced scuba diver, passionate member of the police force. He was a police officer until recently. He retired early so he could focus more on the family business. And he is the proud father of 3, leading the next generation of corny kids. So he's got 3 children. So the hope is that Fletchers will go on for another 80 years. And so I've got my brother, Aaron Fletcher, who is the brain behind quality control. He's kind of the ultimate foodie. And we are serious. He can bench press 50 boxes of corny dogs. Or at least he could when I wrote this 4 years ago. I don't know. COVID affected all of us. So, and then there's me. I mostly handle the marketing, and I get the opportunities to come out and speak with people about the family business and talk about the history. I'm also a dog mom and a sunscreen aficionado because my dermatologist said if I would live in a cave, she'd be happy with my fair skin. So with the third generation, so again, my father passed in 2017. And so with the third generation coming up, we really wanted to honor our father. We didn't want to, we took about a year or 2 before we really did anything. We spent some time just kind of spending time with family, grieving and processing. While we had been waiting for the opportunity our whole lives to finally get to be, at the front and center of the business, it came under more tragic circumstances. So it took us a while to really kind of be able to focus on the business. So then in 2019, my brother and I, we wanted to start doing food trucks. And so we purchased 2 food trailers. And again, we had the same concern that my father had, which is, do people want Fletcher's corny dogs outside the state fair? You know, it's like a pumpkin latte. If you can have it every day of the year, do you want a pumpkin latte? We didn't know, and so it was a big risk for us. But we purchased a food trailer and had one of our first events was out in Frisco at their July 4th event, and it was so much fun, and we think it was a success. We started to get more and more events lined up and festivals. We were really excited how the community was responding to Fletcher's corny dogs being out in the community. We also started introducing more variations of corny dogs, and I know a lot of people, I talk with them and they say, oh, I don't eat hot dogs. So I like to ask them, well, why don't you eat hot dogs? And it's usually a quality issue. They say they don't like to eat parts. And so I love to tell people, if that's you, we get our corny dogs from Syracuse Sausage and Ponder. It's made especially for Fletchers, and it is what we call full muscle meat. No byproducts, no filler. So if you're concerned about quality, we've got the check on quality. Our original is beef and pork, and we did introduce a all vegetarian option. If you or your friends are vegetarian, we have that. We've had that for 8 years now. We also have an all turkey one. If you don't eat beef or pork, or if you're on a diet but you still want to eat a corny dog, it's 40% less fat. We also have one that is all beef for people that just really like their all beef products. So we've got to have some fun and introduce some more variations. My dad, before he passed, introduced the jalapeno and cheese corny dog, which is my favorite. It's got an amazing kick. It's not too spicy. It's just perfect. And that one's my favorite. My dad, when he introduced it, said it was so good, he felt like he was cheating on the other. And I feel the same way, but I still eat the original on occasion. So yes, we started doing food trucks, and we were so excited for everything that 2020 had in store. We had built up so many events and made so many connections. And as most of you know, the world shut down. Every event that we had was canceled. Everything was wiped out. We sat at home for months, like most of y'all did, just with our families, and just really questioning what we were going to do, what was next, what was happening. How would we make our living? Would they cancel the fair? And we were really fortunate that in the month of May, we had an anonymous donor send Fletchers to cater a police station in Dallas just to boost morale. And it ended up getting in the paper. And from there, we had so many people that were paying to send us to feed first responders, hospitals, firemen, police stations all over Dallas-Fort Worth. It was really incredible what these people were doing so that we could just give them 5 minutes to think about something other than what we were during the middle of the pandemic in 2020, which I know for me, I mean, I had so much anxiety for a long, we didn't know what it was. We didn't know what was happening, how long it was going to stay, what was going to go on. And so we slowly started to get invitations to places other than hospitals. We started getting invitations to go to bars, and we couldn't say no. So we went to almost every bar, neighborhood, park, dog food store, anyone that would invite us, because if they had, food service, the bars and breweries, if they had food service, they could be open, which is why we popped up at Delaney Vineyards in 2020. We had an amazing event. We followed CDC guidelines, but it was just a way that people could get outside of the house in a safe way and kind of just forget for a minute about just all the trauma that was happening. And so we started doing these pop-ups in 2020, which was really great for the company because I know so many struggled, but for us, it really helped get the word out that we had these food trucks and that we weren't just at the State Fair anymore. And then the State Fair of Texas did cancel in 2020, which was the first time it had canceled since World War II. And my mom always told me, always have a backup plan. You never know, we might not have the fair. And I was like, that's crazy talk. The fair is never going to cancel. And it did. And so we we sat back and had to rethink again, okay, what are we going to do? And as some of you may know, the fair did have a drive-through had a drive-through experience where you could go get your Jack's fries and your Fletcher's Corny dogs, and they had like some fun games you could play. I think they saw 20,000 cars during the drive-through. The state fair on a normal year sees about 2.5 million people. So it wasn't quite the same, but it really did help the vendors during that time, which was so hard. Some other things Fletcher's has done with the third generation is we do nationwide shipping on goldbelly.com. It's really neat. It's a website where you can order iconic foods from all over the US and send them to yourself, to your friends, to your family. We started doing that in 2020 as well, and we have shipped to all 50 states. We've even shipped to Hawaii and Alaska, which I just think is fascinating. I don't know anyone in Hawaii and Alaska. How do they know about Fletcher's Corny dogs? And we also do catering as well as the events and festivals. We do catering, so birthday parties, anniversary parties, graduation. We get invited to cater almost any style of event now. We even do delivery if it's a little bit smaller and you don't want to, have the entire food truck. And we also do funnel cakes, curly fries, fried Oreos. If we were going to do, food trucks, we might as well do other fair food and just kind of go with it. And people seem to really enjoy the ambiance and the fair food and stuff with the trailers that it brings. So another adventure that the third generation has is that we do have a food truck 6 days a week permanently at Clyde Warren Park in Dallas. We started that in December. So December, January, February, we had to cancel a lot because it was raining and very cold. But the last month and a half has been beautiful, and it's been the first time in 30 years that we have a quote-unquote permanent residency. So it's been a really fun new way to introduce people to our product, or just people that already know and love our product. We had a lady text us through Facebook the other week and asked, are you open today because I'm driving in from Waco? And so it's just really neat that people love this product so much that they're driving from Waco or they're driving from East Texas. And so that's there 6 days a week. Also wanted to talk about the fanfare. So like I said, Fletcher's, it kind of happened overnight, but it also is 81 years in the making. And with that, we get to see a lot of really fun fanfare and love for our product. People have us at their weddings. They make groom's cakes. I've seen at least a dozen groom's cakes that are Fletcher's Corny dogs. And I wonder how the bride felt when he was like, I want a Fletcher's cake. I feel like that might have been their first fight. But we've even had people, interestingly, they tattoo our mascot, Mr. Corny. I think they're doing it for free food. I'm not sure. But even merchandise, we have these adorable twins. It's one of their, I think it was like their 2-month photo, and they dressed them in Fletcher's. Arts and crafts, cookies, milestones, designs. I've even seen people do Fletcher's for Halloween costumes, which is really cool. And it's just such an honor to be a part of a brand that people just seem to love to celebrate. It's really about nostalgia and good times and fun, and it really does transport us back to, I think, better days when things were just better. So that is the end of the slideshow. I'm just going to go over my notes. Do y'all have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Have you ever considered coming to Breakfast at Main Street?
Oh, so that's great. So the way that we operate is we either apply to events, which we have applied before. You have to apply and be accepted, or a person or a city will reach out to us and they invite us, which is how we are at the Carol of Lights in late November. We have applied to Main Street Fest, so if you know anyone a Main Street Fest or Grape Fest that would like Fletchers, let your congressman know. Let them know we would love to be more involved. So we do the Carol of Lights in December, and then we've done some pop-ups here and there, maybe some of the breweries or a bar. We haven't got to do too much in Grapevine, but we would truly love to be here. I grew up in Flower Mound, so I've been coming in Grapevine all my life. We would love to do more here. If y'all have opportunities, please let us know.
Park in front of my house.
Okay, we can park in front of your house. Just got to let everybody know. Any other? Yes, sir?
So is there a difference between a corn dog and a corny dog?
So if it's a Fletcher's, it's a corny dog. We think it could be a combination of carny and corn. I wish my grandfather was alive because I get asked this almost every time, and I don't really know what to say, other than if it's corny, it's Fletcher's, which is the right one. Yeah.
We won't mention pronto pups.
Oh, so I was told that Pronto Pups did come to the State Fair of Texas in the maybe late 40s, early 50s. My mom said they made it one fair and they never came back. So, but I believe they're more flour. It's more like a pancake. I haven't had one. That should be, I guess, something I should try.
So is it patented?
The product, so in 1927, I think it's Stanley Jenkins, he did have a patent for a frying device, and it talked about fruits and other things like that. They think that could have been an idea that happened, but no, it's not patent. But we do have a trademark on our name, so that's important, I've been told. Any other questions?
How many employees do you have to have at the state fair?
So during the State Fair of Texas, we employ about 200 people. We have 7 locations. Big Tex is the more popular one, which has about 40 to 50 people that are working it. The other locations are smaller. But I always tell people, if you don't want to wait in line, get a map of the State Fair of Texas, split it down the center, and there's 3 locations on the right side of the map. Go there. Especially the farthest one on the right. No one knows it's there, and so the lines are quick and easy. And that's usually where I'm at because it's got an AC inside that one. Yes, ma'am.
I know you had a variation with your jalapeno cheese. That's something that you do, but you do that all the time. You do come up with one of those funky things, like fry one with ice cream or something for the state fair. Do you try to do something weird every time or different, or
So
stick with the real thing?
my dad always said, stick to your knitting. If it's not broke, don't fix it. And I'm not really a chef. I can cook corny dogs and mac and cheese. That's about it. So in 2021, we did introduce something called the Dallas Hot Bird Dog, which was us taking our original batter, which we still use the same batter that my grandfather came up with the recipe 80 years ago. We haven't changed it. A lot of corn dogs that you'll find at events and festivals are frozen and refried. We still make everything on site and hand dip everything. But in 2021, we took our original batter and we did a really Nashville hot spice package to it. We fried it and then we cut it down the center and opened it like a hot dog. We stuffed it with mac and cheese, fried jalapenos and Cholula, and we entered the Big Tex Choice Awards. And we did become a semifinalist, but we did not make the top 10. We don't enter it every year. We just really want to focus on the one product that people know and love. And really that's what they come for anyways.
Yeah.
If you have any ideas, I'm always open ears. Make them bigger. I will say we don't have footlongs. I often have people tell me that they had a foot-long Fletcher's, and I'm like, well, that doesn't exist. But you can always buy 2. Yeah. Thank you so much.